Okay, the next part of the settings screen would be the log transport. So let's take a look and see what this does. So the log transport is what we call the area where we perform all the auto feed functions, how the arms interact and how the motors interact. So for example, drive arms start pulse time. That's the time the controller will squeeze the feed rollers onto the log for, and this really helps to create an inertia to get the log moving. Generally, when I like to start new processor head setups, I like around 200 milliseconds or 250 milliseconds of squeeze. By the way, you can touch these and drag, but you can also, if you just touch your finger on each side, you can go up and down in 1 point increments. Delim arm start pulse time. This is the time that it will force the Delim arms to open during the initial feeding process. And here I like to generally set this to around 50 milliseconds. Delim pulse rate. Now this is the frequency to which during its feed cycle that the Delim arms will pulse open. So, for example, when the head is fully processing wood at its maximum speed, this is going to pulse the Delim arms open every 250 milliseconds. My preferential starting point is off. I like as minimum pulsing as possible. Delim past target length is a feature where once the feeding sees the target, it will feed past the target to this setting. Now the advantage of that is if you're in very limmy wood, it can what you would call pre-delim the next target length for you. Very helpful for getting the processor moving forward. So you got quite a long range here that you can set it to, but starting out, I wouldn't use it just yet. If this is more of a higher level thing, after you're used to the system and it's operating. So just turn it off for now, but in time, go ahead and introduce it. Manual slow feed speed. This is the speed when you put the wheels into slow mode for the axis grip, aka Danfoss grip users. To engage this feature, you have to press feed arm close and the feed forward or feed reverse button. And this is a pretty good starting point, maybe 30% speed. And the feed wheel neutral offset is, especially for the Axis Danfoss grip users, you may experience that when you feed forward and feed reverse that the visual speeds are not matching. One looks faster than the other one, for example. You could use this as an offset to actually fine tune the speeds so that they match each other. Now, find end speed, this is the speed to which when you press a find end feature, either a preset or the find end button, it will reverse the head backwards or feed the log forwards or reverse until the sensor's tripped. That's the speed at which it'll do it. Setting the speed too fast decreases accuracy of resetting the length counter. Slower the speed, the more accurate it is. So a general setting, I would probably set that to around the 70% range and just try that for now and just check for accuracy. Trim end length, this is when you do a find end function. It'll feed the log until it trips the find end sensor and then feed it an additional length. In this example, we'll set it to say 6.4 inch. It'll feed it 6.4 inch back, and then you could, if you just wanted to trim each end off with a saw, you could do that. For now, we'll set this to off. Okay, now that we got the wood feeding, next we'll do is we'll work on the ramp down. Now the ramp down is how the motors react during the feeding process of hitting a preset. So up top we have acceleration time, and this is the time between when you press a preset and the time it takes to get to the maximum speed. So we want In smaller wood applications, I'd probably set that to around 500 millisecond range. If you're in very heavy wood, large heavy wood, set it a little bit longer, maybe 800 millisecond range, and this allows the motor to build up its speed a little bit stronger. Ramp down distance. Now the ramp down distance is the distance between the actual target and the maximum speed value. So once it gets within this value, and this example is 34.6 inch of target, it's going to shut off the pump 2 function, which will start the deceleration process of the motors. Now the crawl distance is the distance between the feeding and the target. So the crawl distance right now is set to 10.2 inch, and that's when the power from the controller switches from its max speed to its crawl speed value. And this is very, very necessary in order to get the processor to fully slow down and stop on target. So all these values will take a little bit of adjusting. For every machine is slightly different based on its pressures and flow rates, condition of motors. There's so many variables. So I would suggest setting the crawl distance to around, let's start with about a 12 inch, around a 12 inch value. Crawl speed, I would also start with around a 30% range. It's a good starting point. So if you experience that the log overshoots the target and then has to come back and in reverse and seek its target, probably your crawl speed is set to a little bit too much power. So consider reducing that down just a little bit at a time. And you could also increase your crawl distance as well to give it a little bit more time to slow down. So one thing also, if you set your crawl speed too low, you'll also experience that what the head will do is it will feed up until that crawl distance value, and you'll notice that it'll probably almost stop or not even make it to its target just because it simply does not have enough power. So bring up the power, bring it back up to something where it'll actually just stop really nicely on target. You don't want it to overshoot and get into a hunting effect of the back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. What you want it to do is you essentially just want it to smoothly roar to its target without really noticing that it's in any type of a ramp down or crawl effect. The jump speed is the power required to reverse the head's direction. So generally I like to set jump speed usually about 3% higher than the crawl speed. It's usually enough power to get that thing moving backwards in the opposite direction. So let's start with that. That's probably a pretty good start. And try your processor out and see how those values work for you.